In the previous episode, we saw the first part of the process of making Bond 19, The World Is Not Enough. Pre-production, the way the script was written, the budget constructed, the cast chosen, the locations found, and the various sets designed. The Bond 19 team is now ready to start shooting. Principal photography began at Pinewood Studios on January the 11th, 1999. Only 10 months to go before the film would be released in America. The clock is ticking. We're going to look at how the film was put together by concentrating on one particular scene as an example of the filmmaker's craft. A scene which is key to the development of the narrative. The first confrontation between Bond and the villain Renard, which takes place in a nuclear test facility in Kazakhstan. Before we look at the filming of this scene, we need to know what actually happens in the nuclear test facility, and how the filmmakers thought it might be shot when they devised the storyboards for the scene. Bond arrives at the nuclear test facility in Kazakhstan. Here he meets Dr. Christmas Jones, an expert in nuclear weapons. He descends into the facility deep underground and arrives as a nuclear weapon is being moved. Suddenly, Bond comes face to face with the villain, Renard. At first, Bond manages to capture Renard. However, the tables are turned and Renard is able to escape along with a nuclear weapon, leaving an explosive device behind. So with the nuclear test facility about to explode, Bond and Christmas have to escape. Somehow. Screenwriters Neil Purvis and Robert Wade explain where the ideas for the setting came from and their significance for the story.
There was a lot of stuff in the papers about the Chechen nuclear load being basically unsafe and the West having to help pay to get that nuclear material out of the bombs. And so we thought, well, actually, this is current and it's real. And there is a threat to the world. So then it was, how do we get it into the movie?
I mean, the boys who wrote that stuff had good ideas about it, but in a sense, we had to all sit down very early on and say, well, what can we all do with this?
So how does he do it? Taking the scene from page to screen, bringing it to life as a dramatic and exciting moment in the film.
The stuff itself was difficult because it needed a lot of invention, because basically it's two guys chasing each other down a tunnel, which is kind of tedious even to say it, let alone to spend 6 weeks and $2 million doing it. It's a complicated scene because there's real drama in it, real story in it. It isn't just a shoot 'em up. It's not just firing guns. There's performances to address as well as difficult stunts. I mean, there's explosions, the Bond is on fire, the Bond is being followed by a ball of fire. I would have to do that with stunt guys. And also, it was sort of complicated because, we're going to have to use a little bit of computer graphics, which I'd never done before. We're going to have to use some model work, which I'd never used before. And so, in a sense, in that one sequence, I had the whole schmozzle, I had the whole bag of tricks.
Now, without any further interruptions, let's proceed.
So there's a lot for the director to deliver. Because one part of the action for the scene would be filmed at Pinewood Studios, and the other parts on location, miles away, and months later, continuity is vital. The scene should look as if it was shot in the order of the story, with characters moving in and out of the frame in the right direction. And everyone's hair and makeup looking the same. The interior of the nuclear test facility was shot on a gigantic set on the 007 stage at Pinewood in January and February 1999. In the art department, production designer Peter Lamont has to come up with the idea of how the set would appear on screen.
There's a great book on the Channel Tunnel, especially the service tunnel, and a lot of the elements were in effect slightly like that. But when we started the first samples, our master plasterer, I said, you know, we want this kind of look of the concrete's rotting.
He has to consider not only the look of the set, but also has to be aware of the script, how the characters need to move around during the scene.
First thing we normally do is build a model. People can see the thing three-dimensionally, and you can play with it. You know, sections come out. We have a lipstick camera. You can put the camera in. It's got the correct lenses to what you know our film cameras will use. We can record, take paper prints off, whatever.
So I needed to bring Peter Lamont in, not just to design the set, but to say, well, look, what can you give us here that we can do stuff on, that we can do stunts on, that we can make a gunfight entertaining? What elements can you bring to it?
The sound stage had to be transformed from being an empty space into becoming a realistic nuclear test facility. Michael Apted now has the set on which he can shoot the middle sections of the sequence, Bond underground. One of the first scenes to be shot was the confrontation between Bond and Renard, a moment of high drama which coincided with Robert Carlyle's first day on set.
And Bobby.
You had me. But I knew you couldn't shoulder the responsibility.
And cut. Good. Play me D back, could you? Just the end bit of D.
So Michael Apted not only has to cope with the first major action scene, but also has to integrate a new principal actor into the whole operation. Immediately, he sets to work on getting the two actors working together on this scene, which is full of conflict, lots of close-ups, lots of reaction shots.
But then, I knew you couldn't shoulder the responsibility.
I don't want him anywhere near the bomb. Now, without any further interruptions, let's proceed.
The director goes from talking the actors through the scene to watching the action play back through the monitors, showing him all of the various angles that the cameras have shot.
And cut. Nearly.
Apted will use many cameras, giving him options at the editing stage and meaning that the cast don't have to do the scene over and over again.
How's that? Is that all right for you, Martin?
Yes, sir.
All right, do another Bobby. Thank you.
Renard makes his escape from underground, handily accompanied by a nuclear weapon. As he leaves, Bond confronts him.
No hard feelings, Mr. Bond. But we're even. Soon, you'll feel nothing at all.
Not all scenes are shot with 4 cameras. The 2 elements of the confrontation were shot separately. The special effects department detonate the lift door, fracturing the glass. Later on in the day, the crew shoot Bond firing the gun at Renard as a separate close-up. It requires a lot of concentration to get the timing right, to look up as the lift ascends and then down towards the bomb, neither of which are actually there. Soon, Apted has to move on to the action. It takes a lot of skill and patience to get good performances in the dramatic moments of the scene. But the action elements present different challenges. A shot that will eventually last a couple of seconds can take hours to film. Sometimes those props just won't work. This scene is full of action, and with little experience in this area, Michael Apted works closely with stunt coordinator Simon Crane.
If a writer, say, comes up with something, some people might think it's impossible. Nothing is impossible, there's always a way to do it, but it's whether it's going to look believable and be part of the story as well. Anyone can do the best stunt, but you've got to make it story-wise that it works.
Pierce Brosnan does all but Bond's most dangerous stunts himself. This included everything in the nuclear test facility, as Simon Crane explains.
We were putting Pierce in close proximity to a lot of fire, a lot of explosions. He had a small fight scene to do, and then he's diving all over the place. So we had Pierce on cables, flying here, there and everywhere, sliding down this long corridor with all these explosions going off in the background.
Seal the door! Close it!
And even for one shot, we set his back alight as he's writhing around on the floor, and he had to dive up and carry on. And when we were doing that, I must say he was excellent, but he was meant to put it out as he's writhing around on the ground, but it didn't go out, so when he jumped up in the air to carry on with the scene, his back was still on fire. We just had to run in with fire extinguishers. Totally safe, but you know, there's not many actors, you know, of his caliber that you could do that with.
But Bond and Christmas aren't yet safe. They need to escape through the depths of the nuclear test facility. As we know, the scenes shot at Pinewood are supposed to be deep underground. The producers decided not to spend money on a real lift, so Mara Bryan's visual effects team had to design a way of making this look convincing.
He sort of fires himself out on this gas-propelled elevator with Christmas. There was a lot of discussion about that. The art department and construction designed two sets, one to represent the bottom of the lift shaft and one to represent the top, and everything in between was a model. But because there is a line that Bond says, I'm not sure whether I should, no, I don't think I will. There is a line that Bond says as they travel up on the elevator. He starts saying at the bottom,
Name's Bond.
And he finishes saying at the top,
James Bond.
So you need somewhere in there a close-up of them as they're traveling. So that was a green screen shot, which we had the elevator against a green screen rocking, and we've put a plate. We've actually made a plate from photographs of the set and put that in behind. So that's how he gets out of the test facility.
Green screen is the device that Mara's team used to create some of the shots that the crew can't do for real.
Green screen or blue screen, or the general term chroma keying, applies to a technique whereby you put your subject against a background of a strong colour that doesn't exist in that subject. So for instance, if you were shooting Kermit the Frog, you would not shoot him against a green screen, you would shoot him against a blue screen, so that you're able to then separate him from that colour and impose him into another scene or put him onto another background. If we've got him at that position, 20 feet down, then we can literally just freeze a frame and take him the rest of the way. My role during production is to make sure that we are gathering all the right material to put those shots together well at the end.
The shots that the visual effects department design are completed after the film is finished shooting, in post-production. So although Mara is around for the shooting of the film, most of her work happens after the filming is complete. Her team puts the shots together using computers, removing wires and putting all the green screen elements in place.
I'm really glad that we're changing it. So have you actually scaled that one up already?
Yeah, this one's been scaled down a bit to what I had for the other one. It's 4002, so the earlier shot.
maybe a little closer, maybe come into sort of 10%.
After 6 weeks, Michael Apted moves on to other locations and other scenes before the schedule requires him to return to this particular sequence to shoot the beginning and the end of it.
When you're on a studio, you've got to have the ideas, because all you've got is bricks and mortar and an intimidating, vast space that you've got to fill up. With locations, it's so inspiring to be on location. You can find things, you look at this, just looking at the texture of this location, the shape of it, you drive around, you see something that gives you ideas for it. I love being on location because I love working from reality, that I can get stimulated by things like that when I'm on a stage, and it's simply I'm kind of limited by the imagination, my own imagination and the imagination of people around me. When I'm out on location, then I've got God on my side,
Yes, well, we'll see about that.
In the story, the nuclear test facility is in Kazakhstan. Although the team researched the location, they didn't shoot the scene there. Using the real place as their inspiration, Michael Apted and his team had to find a location that would look as if it was Kazakhstan. Initially, the crew planned to go to Turkey, where the scenery resembled the location in the script, but the political situation at the time meant that it was unsafe for the whole crew to go there. Everything seemed to be solved when the team found a location in Spain. Well, almost.
Having decided we were going to have to move to Spain, then we went and we found a place, and they said, yes, you can film here. Then they suddenly discovered it was a breeding ground for vultures and eagles, and so they had to throw us off. So we had to start all over again.
Eventually, they found another location in Spain. As always, the first thing the crew needed was a set to film on. Peter Lamont designed the exterior of the nuclear test facility on location. The key to his job is to make use of what's around him.
When we were in Turkey, it didn't quite work because it wasn't opened up enough. And with Banderos here, this was the type of situation we were looking for, with these kind of mesa type of terrain, with our escape hatch, which you can see up on the far hill over there. When Bond and Christmas come out from below, when the whole complex is exploding and Renard is escaping and the plane comes past, we can see the whole geography of the whole complex. Down below, just down here, this is the entrance to the test facility. But I think it's, for us, it was fortuitous that it's as good a location as this.
As we know from the storyline, the exterior of the nuclear test facility appears at the beginning of the sequence as Bond arrives.
Welcome to Kazakhstan, Dr. Arkov. I'm a great admirer of your research. It's not often we see someone of your stature here.
I go where the work takes me.
Oh, by the way, you have the transport documents?
This part of the scene requires a lot of dialogue to set up who Bond is, how he meets Christmas Jones, and how he is going to get underground.
And action! And action!
And you are?
Mikhail Arkos, Russian Atomic Energy Department. Miss?
Dr. Jones. Christmas Jones. And don't make any jokes, I've heard them all.
I don't know any doctor jokes.
This is okay. Take the elevator down the hall. Your friend's already down there.
As the sequence ends, there is little need for dialogue, simply a conclusion to the mayhem that has happened underground, which was filmed at Pinewood months ago. Bond needs to go out with a bang. In the distance, we see the nuclear test facility exploding. Chris Corbold's special effects unit are responsible for making sure that this part of the scene is spectacular.
Size-wise, it's the biggest. There have been other complicated ones, with actors a lot closer, but this was the biggest one as such. There was approximately 250 gallons of petrol and around about 15 kilos of gelignite, all in a big cocktail.
Safety is always the major concern for Chris and his team, but of course they're trying to get the most impressive explosion they can.
We've been testing for 3 days now, to get the parameters right, safety margins right. So we were pretty confident we had a good safety margin, but still, looking spectacular. Although the flames only go out so far, the heat that radiates off of them goes like twice as far. That's why you have to be very careful with your safety margins when you're doing an explosion of that size.
This is all that's left. For some shots, there are no second chances.
There's not much of the set left to have a second chance, so you've got to get it right first time.
The nuclear test facility sequence was filmed on and off over 5 months, but only takes up about 12 minutes of screen time. It's only one of many sequences. Whilst Michael Apted is working with actors, different units are filming other vital elements for the film.
For me, the most difficult part of the job, the thing that was a big surprise to me, was how hard it was to keep a grip of the second unit, the model unit, the insert unit, the underwater unit, all that, because it was hard enough doing my job, directing the main unit, directing the dialogue scene, getting the performances, trying to slightly change the tone of the film and all that, but I had to know exactly what was going on with all the other units.
The 3 sections of the test facility scene need to be matched together to form one seamless sequence. Michael Apted had an idea in his head all along of how the scene would look. The choices he made are part of the next program.
What's the first shot? I'll show you.
This one scene gives us most of the conventions of the genre of action-adventure that we discussed in Program 1. However, there is a lot of work still to do before The World Is Not Enough is ready to go before a cinema audience. Effects need to be added, music written, fine-tuning in the edit suite, so that every ounce of drama and action can be gained from the scene.
We're going to finish this together.
In the last episode, we'll see the final part of the filmmaking process. As the release date approaches, an audience for the film needs to be created. This is where the marketing department comes in. They're going to sell you the film. The world is not enough for these people. They want your money.
Bond. James Bond.